Love things you.
Who sings
You
that?
know we don't own the rights to this music, girl. Cause I'm singing now. Yeah.
We
Say,
want people to tune in, not tune out, Paul.
I thought that was good. I thought I hit that note. We talking about
I'm
love
glad
today.
you thought it was good.
I
But
thought that
because
note
I'm a
might have.
friend, I'm going to tell you, leave the singing alone. Don't quit your day job.
I thought that might have got you in the mood. I was with the singing girl.
Listen, that is one of my favorites. I do indeed enjoy it, but it sounds so much better from Music Soul Child rather than Dr. Paul Miller.
Oh, I thought I was. I thought I was one of my better showings.
We'll work on that.
I guess.
We will work on that.
Mm. Welcome, welcome,
So,
welcome.
yes, and as Dr. Miller has stated, we do not own the rights to that song, but we do enjoy it. We do enjoy it. Welcome. Welcome to episode 4, season 3 of Vulnerable Voices. We are so happy that you joined us. And as you can see, it's just the two of us today. It's Dr. Paul Miller and Dr. EJ coming to you live from YouTube. We ask that you like our channel on YouTube, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, wherever you get your podcast. Listen, listen, listen. And we're going to have some tonight. So tonight's episode is all about relationships, love, and that's right, because this is a grown folks conversation, real talk from real leaders. So with that, I want to give my intro, and I'm feeling in the spirit of love today. And I was thinking about relationships. I was thinking about love, not sex too much. And the first person to my mind is my child. I have a 21-year-old, actually, and I was told by my mother before she was born, you'll never understand what being a real woman is until you have own child. And you'll never understand what true love is until you have your own child. And with that, I must tell you, she has turned me into a real woman, and I know what real love is about. And so I just want to shout out to that little girl who's all grown up. She called me today and she said, Mama, I just want to tell you I love you. So I love you too, baby girl. Shout out to love, what real love is, and being a real woman. So let's start this conversation, Paul.
Okay, all right. You love your babies. I love my babies too. Okay, that's good stuff. So I know you love your baby, but tell us. We want to know. The people want to know how old were you, and tell me the first time you were in love. See, you thought I was going to ask you the first time you got some action, but see, I don't. I want to know that later. But so tell me the first time you was in love, and what did that look like? What did that feel like?
That's very interesting, Paul, because the first time I was in love, I was in high school, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing is, it's my child's father. So at the age of 15, I fell in love with this guy that I thought was Mr. Dreamy. He was just so handsome, and I just didn't know up from down. He just shook my world up and turned it around. I was definitely in love. I knew that I was in love because I loved him to the point where I would do just about anything and I would let go of just about anything. But my mother told me, be careful, And baby, you really understand right now what real love is. And of course, at 15, you think you know any and everything. But I learned, yes, that was the time that I fell in love. And we had a wonderful child out of our relationship. Um, and I'm appreciative of that. But with that, I also found a deeper kind of love after I had my child. So that's my answer.
What does that mean? What's a deeper love? So what does that mean?
A
So like
deep,
can you love somebody and then be deeper in love? If you love them, you love them. What does that mean?
well, I difference between being in love and loving someone, don't you? So you can love everybody. We're supposed to love everybody. But when you talk about being in love with somebody, I always say love is something that you feel when you never felt the feeling that you felt before. And when you feel that, that's being in love, which is completely different. So let me ask you this, Paul. I'm gonna spin it on you.
Okay, go ahead.
And I wanna kind of jump to relationships and love, right? So in a marriage, we've been there. In a marriage, you are committed to this person, and you typically get married because you're in love, right? And you say, I'm willing to spend the rest of my life with this person. My wondering is, do you fall out of love course of a marriage? And if so, is that normal and is that okay?
Okay. So let me think about that. Do you fall out of love? Well, I think it goes back to where you said you love or in love with the person. So even when you get married, I can't say I think we deeply loved each other, but I don't know even when we got married if we were deeply in love. I think we loved each other deeply, and so even with my ex-wife, I'll always love her, but I will never be in love with her again. And I think so going back to the question you said, do you fall out of love, or that's what you want to know, right?
Right.
And I think
in a marriage sustaining that.
And you know what? I think so for me, I think a lot of times it's the circumstances that change things. And as so like my ex-wife and I, we were together since we were 15 off and on. And so being together since we were so young, I think we grew and grew up. But as we grew up, we also thoughts changed, feelings changed. We grew as people differently, some the same. And I think also, growing up, you go through growing pains, and there's hurts, there's pains, there's ups and downs on both ends. And some of those ups and downs and those pains, I think they start to cover some of that. If you don't truly heal from those things, it starts to cover some of the in love. And so when the in love fades, you have a tendency to stop valuing the relationship the way that you probably used to in the beginning. And then, begins the erosion of that relationship. So I definitely think it's circumstantial based on how the people treat each other. And, as I'm getting older and growing, you have to treat that person, your significant other, you have to treat them how you want to be treated. And you have to treat them always with that mantra of trying to maintain that love and not cause the hurt that's going to have you fall out of love.
So is being in love a different feeling or young when you grow older?
I don't think it's a different feeling. I think you manage it differently. I think when you're young, you might not manage it the same, and you might be distracted from certain responsibilities, or you might not know how to also maintain your own identity. But as you get older and you understand yourself and you understand what you bring to the table, I believe that the feelings are going to be similar, but the way that you manage those feelings are different.
Do you have to marry for love? Can you marry somebody for just a partnership, what you have to offer and what they have to offer? Or is that taboo and that's a no-no?
I think it happens all the time. I think it
Yeah,
happens to
but is
people
it
all
the
the time.
right thing to do?
Nah, I mean, I wouldn't think so. I mean, and I think there's different perspectives of why people get married. Some people, some people it's a business relationship. Some people it's they don't want anybody else to have sex with the person. Some people are in love and would do anything for that person. I mean, I'm sure there's a variety of reasons, but do I think that it's healthy? I, I don't think so. I think that it it probably is covering up for something else that you got going on with you if you don't truly love that person and you're just doing it to do it.
I agree. You know what I hear men say a lot
Well,
is particularly when they are struggling in their relationships. I hear a lot. I married her because I felt obligated. I married her because I felt like it was my responsibility.
I could understand that. And I think also, from a younger age, I can speak from my own personal experience. I can't speak for all men, but I think from my personal experience, I've always loved, I loved her deeply. And I would think when we were younger, probably from the ages of 15 to maybe almost 19, 20, there was some deep in love feelings. I think some circumstances kind of changed that. And then, but as we got a little bit older, and I think we were 23, 24 when we had our first child. We weren't married yet. I think at 23 we weren't married. Or what? I don't even remember exactly what age I was when I first had my first daughter. But so it's 20 years ago. I'm 43, so 23, right?
There you go. Do the math.
So we ended up, we were broken up for almost 2 years when my daughter was young. We got back together, and then we decided to get married. And this one of the things that was said to me was, I remember the conversation vividly, and it was like, if we're going to do this, you got to marry me. Um, and I would honestly tell you, looking back at that, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for that, and I didn't necessarily want that, but I made myself ready because I thought that that was the right thing to do. I said to myself, I said, yeah, I love her. Yeah, I want to be with her. No, I don't want to get married right now. No, I'm not really ready to get married. But with having a child, I felt like, you know what, we need to be a family. We need to do this, and we love each other. So let's do this together. And so there was some obligation there. And I wish that I would have been able to, or in a place to handle that differently at that point in time. But I don't regret it because my son came out of it. We had a lot of good years and a lot of learning and growing, even though it didn't work out the way it needed to.
And what doesn't break you makes you stronger, right? It was a learning experience, and now you have an experience to share.
So what was your best relationship, and what was your worst relationship, and why?
Whoa. So we're getting real here, and I'll jump in with that. But first, we have really good question in the
Okay,
chat.
let's see what it is. Hold on, I'm gonna put it up here. Let's see.
Yeah.
Let's see. Did either of you find your marriage or relationship change after the doctorate? And so let's answer that one first.
So I want to tackle that one. So when I got my principalship before I got my doctorate. So when I got my principal, mentor told me, you need to have a conversation with your husband because he needs to understand that going into a principalship is going to change your life completely. I mean, and I had observed this, but I didn't know the intertwinings of what actual principalship required. And she told me, make sure you have a conversation with him. And you guys are going to have to do this together because a principalship can break a marriage. And so I had that conversation with him, and he was all in. And then when, he's dinner because I had that kind of husband. When he's cooking dinner and I say I'm going to be home at a certain time and then something else happens at the school and I'm 2-3 hours late and this is constantly happening, that began to pose a problem, right? But to me, I'm like, I'm on my grind. I'm trying to get it. I'm doing it. I'm changing the world and I just need your support. But it became a huge issue in my marriage. Now, when it comes to the doctorate, not only did my become an issue in my marriage, but my doctorate became an issue in personal relationships because no, you can attest to this. Like there were no weekends for me during my dissertation. Coursework was one thing, but during my dissertation, it was no weekends for me. I remember having a conversation with you. You may not even remember this. This was years ago. And you said, I was working on it. And you said, your dissertation is like a brick in the wall. It's not the whole wall. And so with that, I marinated on that. And I would always marinate on things that people would tell me. And so I was completely focused on getting my doctorate and working on my education. So it was a lot of events I didn't show up to. There were a lot of acts that he may have received and I couldn't be a part of that. So it changed not only my marriage, but friends that I have. And I must say, I think my career has had a devastating impact on my personal relationships.
See, first of all, I smiled because you actually listened to something I said. So that's the first thing. If there was like a applause button or something, I would get some applause going.
Yeah,
so that's the first thing. Yeah. So, and then for me, though, I think it changed. I think it did change a little bit. I think there was a little bit of it created a little distance because similarly, the process is difficult and it wore it down. And I will say, and I appreciate and I respect the fact that when I was doing it, I was working sometimes 60 hours a week and still doing the doctorate. And so the program that I went through, Vanelia went through too. So that she went through that program in a different satellite office and in Syracuse, I believe. And so what was interesting is that I did that and I held down the doctorate, and we had coursework at the same time, dissertation at the same time, internship at the same time, everything in the same time. And there was no shortcuts. So it was all compounded to get done within 3 years. And so, but you had to do it the same way a 7-year program, everything normal people did in 7 years, we did it in 3. And so that was difficult. She did hold down the kids. She held down the fort, but I tried to balance it with trying to make time for the kids, make time for her. But I do feel like afterwards, and as I've excelled in my career and been able to reach certain levels of success, I think there did create a little bit of distance. I think there did create a little bit. Oh, you think you Dr. Paul Miller now? Where I'm still the same dude. I'm still me. There's really, I have evolved in a form or fashion of trying to grow and I think maybe differently, but I don't behave in a manner where I think that it has made me any better than anybody. It just has I've worked harder than some people. That's all. And I think Vanelia had another good question that it was, how do you know when it's over and time for a divorce? And, for me, we were having some issues and I'll just, I'll put it out there. Unfortunately, with the issues, there was some infidelity on my end and also where we were going to, we had discussed working through some of those issues. And what I will say is there's no excuse for that. There's no excuse. I will say that I made bad choices, and I made bad choices because I didn't emotionally take care of myself. And when I say all of that, I say also that the responsibility that I believe that she played in the marriage, not in me making those bad choices, is that is that um, that I, even though I made those bad choices, there was things that were happening on her end that she wasn't doing. She wasn't taken care of. I often didn't feel loved, taken care of, like I was important or like I meant anything. And then I looked to find that in the wrong places. So I made some bad choices there. And like I said, we having real talk. So I'm sharing these personal details. But at the same time, I had to come to terms with that. So we decided that initially we were going to work through some things. And for me, when I knew it was over, is when she couldn't take responsibility for the erosion of the marriage on her end, where she couldn't take any responsibility for it. And so where it takes two people, it doesn't. And again, her responsibility aren't in my actions or didn't make me do those bad choices. But what it did was it made me feel like I needed to, and that's what she won't take responsibility for that. And so when she wouldn't take responsibility for her part, I just felt like it wasn't, we were just going to keep going in circles. And I was going to be, even though I was working towards making the changes and I wanted to do things differently. And it had been a few years since I had done anything that would be inappropriate, but it wasn't enough. And so when it moved that way, I needed to move differently. I needed to move differently. And I think she did too, because she wasn't able to get over that hurt. And not that I'm saying she needed to or she had to, but when she said she wanted to, but wouldn't admit her responsibility, it was time to do something different because we were going to keep going through the same cycles. So, and if there's anybody else out there who
Got
has
it.
questions, please ask them.
And I
We having real talk here. Well, what about you, Erica? How did you know it was over?
real, real conversation. Um, as far as answering this particular question, how do you know when it's over or time for a divorce? In marriage, you're going to have your ups and downs. You're going to go through, and you take vows for better or for worse. But I think you have to decide what it is that you are just not willing to accept. And that's when you know you need to make a choice and a decision. But I will say this.
She's frozen, y'all. She looked like she was thinking.
Divorced quickly. I think that did it stop? I think it was an error that I made, moving too quickly. I always say if you're feeling like, you want to divorce your spouse, just take a little break, separate right before you make that final, because divorce is like a death, and you get into a mood and a groove and you're like, I don't want it no more. I'm done. I'm over. Right. But then after you begin to go through the process, it's like a real loss. I mean, it's like a death. So I would just caution everyone that if you're looking into that, just take your time and make sure you have somebody to talk to. To Paul's point, having someone that you can relate to and talk to, get therapy, fix yourself, figure out what's going on with you. You can be the spouse that you need to be, but also know what your bottom line is and what you're just not willing to accept. And an older couple told me one time, you're going to fall in of love with your husband. He's going to fall in and out of love with his wife. But the problem is when you both fall out of love at the same time. And then that's what leads to divorce. So as long as somebody's loving somebody, everything will be all right and you can get through it. But when you're together, that's when you have a problem.
I see Dr. Sylvia Lloyd had a question. If you could do it all over again, what would you do differently? I know for me, if I had an opportunity to do it all over again, I think, first of all, I think I would have probably expressed differently that I wasn't ready at the time to get married and that I did love her, but I wasn't ready for marriage. And then on top of that, so let's say I got into the marriage and we're talking about what would I have done differently in the marriage. I would have tried to heal myself and go to therapy. I would have tried to work on, because I felt like I brought and I've just been working on it as I've gotten older, and now I'm in my 40s, to where I've been dealing with this healing that it needs to happen. But at the end of the day, I didn't do that during the marriage. I think I'm good at putting things in boxes. So what I would do is I put them in boxes and I would just stay busy and deal with it regardless of how I felt. And I brought a lot of baggage and healing that was needed from my childhood, and that things that I carried over to my marriage. I even think I found a partner that had some comparisons to that brought out to some motherly comparisons, and that, some issues I had growing up or whatever. And I think that I would have worked on myself. And I do believe that I should have made the choice to where, if those expectations weren't being met that I needed, I should have decided to pull out and not stay because I thought I was doing the right thing. So I stayed because I thought I was supposed to. I stayed because of my kids. I stayed because I thought I had to make things work, but I was not happy. And I should have probably called it earlier and made a change before I created additional hurt and created damage that shouldn't be created, because it still wasn't right. So I don't know if you have the answer to that as well, Erica.
Yeah, same thing. I would not have gotten a divorce as quickly as I did. I would have, that's something that I would have done differently. And I think I also wouldn't have gotten married when I did. I would have taken my time there. So I guess this is a therapy session for me, right? It's exposing that, getting it done, quick. What we gonna do? And so that's something that I'm working on. When you say, fix yourself, you have your own pains. Issue that I have, it's a plus in my career. In my personal life, not that great. I want it done. I want it quick. Let's figure out what we're going to do. Let's not waste any time. Let's move on. Let's hit it. And what I'm learning in a relationship, that's not always a good thing. So that's what I would have done differently. Let's take my time.
So Vanelia has another question. What would have been the right reasons to stay? And you, Erica, you want to start with that one?
Sure. I think it's love. I really do. When love is a powerful thing. There's not much that you can't overcome. So those are the right reasons to stay. If you know there's a fighting chance for your relationship, if both parties are willing to accept that, look, this isn't going well and we need help. And maybe that's outside help. But what you have a lot of times, particularly with our Black men, is they don't want to go to therapy. They don't want help. They feel like, they can fix it themselves. And that becomes a problem. Paul, when do you know? Why do you stay?
So I think I'm gonna combine her two questions here, and good. Reason to stay, and she's struggling that they're not on the same page. They love each other, but they don't want the same things, and so I think that's called irreconcilable differences. Yeah, you like my big words. That's divorce words.
That's the check box on that divorce decree. Mm-hmm.
So the right reasons to stay. Again, it has to be, the love has to be there in your heart. So I think the love being in your heart will guide you in the right direction. And I think it's also about, are you still in love with that person? Because if you're not, are you stopping doing the things that it takes? And I think it's also checking yourself. Are you doing what it takes? Are you meeting that person halfway? Are you still giving Because you remember when y'all went on that first date and you had the little butterflies in your stomach, and then you couldn't wait for him to call you again. And then the first time y'all done got it in, and you couldn't wait to get it in again. Girl, are you still getting it in like that? And you know, I'm being facetious, but at the same time, but are you still doing the things that it takes? And are you meeting this man halfway with things? And are you doing your part? And is he willing to do that for you? And are you willing to overcome and heal? And if there's the brick wall up and neither one of you are budging, at some point in time, it becomes unhealthy. And so that unhealthiness, is that healthy? And I'm not going to answer the question for you because I don't want to tell anybody what to do in their relationship. I'm not an expert in that, but is it healthy for you? And if it's not healthy and you're continuously creating unhealthy environment, and are you creating an unhealthy environment for your kids if you have them? And I know you just had a little one as well. So you want to look back and say, you know what, do we want to create more damage than good? And I would say that being on the same page is important, but you can get back on that same page by remembering and trying to align your values. You know, what are your values? I'm in the same way in the work that we do in leadership when we try to align people with a mission and a vision, and you got to come back to that. What's your original mission and vision together? You know, and bringing people aligning those values. And if those values are off, you know, it's time to rethink it. Or how do you get them back on the same page?
How do you get them back on the same page? Absolutely. And I think that's part of the issue as well. I talk to ladies, and, you know, I just keep it real, Paul. You know, I've had those kind of conversations with you. I'm just going to tell you what I'm seeing and what I'm thinking. Mm-hmm. And I hear a lot of times ladies saying that, well, he doesn't want what I want, or I like to do this and he doesn't like to do this. And I always ask the question, have you told him that? Have you asked him to actually do these things? And about 90% of the time, what I get is, well, no, I mean, he knows that I like to do this, or he knows that I like to do that. And just going back to communication, you cannot expect a man to know exactly what you need from him. Mm-hmm. You got to open your mouth and tell him, because men, we love them, but they're not the smartest creatures in the world.
Whoa, Nelly.
You must.
I don't know about that one.
Let's be real. They had a class. You missed that. Taught us that in school. Communicate with your spouse.
You know, it might be the slower sex, but
to the auditorium and the boys couldn't come. That's what they were teaching us.
Yeah, I just think, are you, and I think it goes back again to, are you listening and hearing, and are you caring for each other the way you need to? Or are you taking shots? Are you taking jabs? Are you leaving things out? Are you getting petty? What's happening? Are you communicating? And how do you go back to the things that got you there in the first place? And trying to reignite and relight those things, I think, is definitely important.
So let's talk to the single people who are trying to find that special someone. Like, how do you even get started, particularly in this day and time? Is online dating okay, Paul?
Is online dating?
Yeah.
You know, I'm from the old school, so I guess, you know, it's okay. I mean, I think new school people, it's to meet people, it's not terrible, but I don't think you form the same connection or bond as you do by having the person in front of you. I think it might be initially, especially with COVID going on, I'm sure there was a lot of sliding in the DMs going on. Did anybody slide in your DM? Who slid in your DM? You got some people slid in your DM?
I don't even know how to check my DM. How about that?
That's a good answer. She lying, but she had all kinds of eggplants in her DM.
Oh wow! What does that mean?
You know what you had in your DMs. And I know ladies don't even like that. So I don't know why dudes do that, because most ladies.
Why do they do that? Why is that about a man? Why do they do that?
I mean, maybe they think if they could oppress you with what they're working with, that it might attract you to want to do something with it.
How is that
But
how it works?
I'm assuming I wouldn't do that because I think it's corny.
That was my next question. It's a pick.
Nah, hell nah, because it's corny. See, I ain't never have to do that.
Oh, okay.
I don't need to do that. But it's corny because at the end of the day, you know what? Knowing and understanding women don't want that, especially if a woman of substance and a woman of quality. Even if you want to just hit it, if she has any substance or quality, she's not going to be interested in that. That's going to be a turnoff for her because you have to stimulate more than just her eyesight to get to a woman's, bag. So
not always, they tell me.
She said, Miss McFadden said,
yes!
it goes back to what Erica said, that men aren't the smartest, Miss McFadden. I'm going to take you right off the screen because I'm not agreeing with you.
Thank you, Sherilyn. That is absolutely correct. And so now I'm going to give you another question, Paul. Mm-hmm. Why do you cheat? Why do men cheat? What is that about? And ladies or gentlemen on the call, if you got an answer or you got a wonderful question, hit us up. But why do men cheat? Not saying that women don't.
So I think there's different types of cheaters.
Here we go with
all right. So I believe there's some men that won't cheat at all. I believe there is that group of men that will always do right and not cheat at all, right? And then I believe that
information to me.
I'll see if I can find them for you. So this is a lot of man bashing going on. My brother's watching. Come on, somebody chime in. But okay, so I believe that there's men who won't cheat at all, and then I believe that there's other men that will cheat if they're unhappy or they feel untaken care of or they're not getting their needs met. And then I feel that there's other men that just cheat because they have that bravado and that ego. They want that ego stroked, and they need it stroked so bad that they're going to do it regardless, because it becomes another notch or a trophy because the woman's so fine that they don't want to give that up. But that's all about their own ego. And so I believe those are the three reasons. I'm not saying the two reasons and then the other brother who doesn't, not saying that any of them are valid, but if you're being loyal and you're making a commitment, I definitely believe in morals and honoring that commitment. But I also think that understanding that, there's different circumstances. There's in my mind, there's those three brothers.
I asked a guy.
Thank you. I got somebody agree with me. Okay. All right. Is that Dr. Leslie Myers? Okay.
I had a conversation I think it was last week, asked the same question, and I got the best answer that I had ever received from a man when I asked.
You don't like my answer?
Nah, that was BS, Paul.
So, how is that BS? No, it's not. That's real.
There's a fundamental reason why. And this brother said it plainly.
Let me hear this. He was trying to get some. He just wanted to tell you what you wanted to hear. He was hoping it was going to get you right.
And men that cheat are greedy. Men that cheat are greedy. And that sums up what you said for man number 2 and man number 3. It's greed.
See, I disagree. I disagree. And the reason why I disagree is now I believe, now I can again speak from experience and not
experience of cheating.
I told you I had infidelity. I had issues of infidelity.
Sure that's the experience referring to.
Say that again.
I'm just trying to make sure that's the experience we're referring to.
You wanted me to say it again. That's okay. I say it again. Not because I'm proud of it, but just because that's my story. So and I don't
thank you.
And so what I'm sharing here and what I'm saying is that I can deeply say that I didn't heal from my issues, and it wasn't, and I felt like I wasn't getting what I needed, what I wanted. I felt like, I felt like I was in the desert and I was thirsty. And so, when a nice drink comes around, you're going to drink. And again, I'm not, but no, I'm thirsty. So I'm thirsty because I wasn't having my needs met, but not just in a physical sense, in an emotional sense, in a spiritual sense. There was things that were missing, and there was also, I didn't do the work to heal and emotionally be able to deal with it effectively. And so I wasn't being greedy. Um, Now I didn't do right, but at the same time, my decision making was wrong. But it wasn't about greed. There was more about that I didn't feel fulfilled, to where I can tell you now, I'm in a different relationship, and I've been in this relationship with this person for almost a year now, and there's no issues around that because one, I've grown to the point and I've worked on myself to heal, and I'm not going to allow that to be an issue again, and also not allow that to be an issue from the perspective of, I don't want to create that hurt or damage. And on top of not wanting to create that hurt or damage, I also am getting my needs met in all different kinds of ways, to where if I wasn't, I would have to make the decision to walk away, whether I wanted to or not.
And not be greedy and drink water.
Right. So I definitely, what Shalyn say? You guys spoke about foundation and relationship. Do you think a lack of God leading the relationship is the reason for failure?
I do.
What'd you say, Erica?
I do. I believe that 100%. I believe a lot of times uh, we don't consult God before we get married. And that's the cause of a lot of failure and heartache. I think that we don't consult God a lot of times during our marriage. A lot of times we're looking, particularly for women, we're looking at the wedding. We're excited about a wedding rather than the marriage itself, and that's what's sustainable. And I think you must build your relationship around, because I'm just a spiritual person. I believe in God. I think that you have to build yourself around that and agree to allow Him to lead. The most powerful thing that a couple can do together. So you have your time together where you go to God together, right? And I think that's crucial. And I think I know when I was preparing or trying to figure out if I should even get a divorce, I think I prayed more than I had prayed in a really long time. I read scripture, like I was looking for God to tell me, yep, you need to get a divorce. And I couldn't find it. But what God did speak to me was He said, I love you and I love him more than I love marriage. And it was just crystal clear to me. I was kind of in my feelings because he told me he loved him too, because I was not like the moment. But to hear, and if you understand that spoken into my, give me confirmation that my decision okay, but I also need to understand that God has love for all of His children, no matter how pissed off or upset I am with my husband. God loves all of His children.
And for me, I think God definitely needs to lead and be at the forefront. And I think I think there were times where I lost sight of that, and I think there was times she lost sight of that, and I think there was times that we both weren't on the same page to that, and looked at God and spirituality a little bit differently, and so that created issues. And I think not having that common foundation at times, I do think that that would create an erosion. I know Vanilla asked, did I communicate that to my wife? And I did, but I don't think I always communicated it effectively. And so I believe at times I tried, and I think I did the best that I could. And I don't think she heard me. Often I was met with, oh, I'm doing this because you did that, or I'm doing this because of that. It was never like, I understand and let me do better, or let me do this. And there were times that I think I tried and she wasn't, and there was times she tried and I wasn't.
Yeah, but that's the
And
marriage. That's how it goes.
right, but it was happening too. It happened too often, and the cycle was too cyclical. So it was so much that we never were on the same page, and that this hurt just kept coming in, minus the infidelity. So that hurt just come. I mean, that's a whole nother topic, but that hurt just kept coming in, and that cyclical hurt caused issues for us. And at some point in time, that erosion, it just, if we couldn't fix it, why keep hurting each other? And that's that, and okay, well said, Dr. EJA. Yes, I agree. Always well said. So I definitely believe in that. But for my single brothers out there, they want to know. They want to know if you in a relationship now, and they want to know who's hitting it. Who's getting some over there? Who's getting some of that?
You, I am practicing abstinence. I am waiting for Mr. Right to come into my life and change my life.
That sounds like she had a prepared answer, y'all. That sounds like some straight BS.
Hey,
you ain't gonna get your hair done for no reason.
Because you know what? I'm glad you said that. Because ladies, let me say this before we go, and I turn it over to Dr. Miller. Ladies, do not lose yourself in your relationship. Take care of you. Make sure you have friends and associates that you continue to socialize with, have your girls' nights occasionally. I'm not saying hang out every day. That's not what I'm saying. But you must not lose sight of who you are, because a lot of times as a mother, as a wife, as a professional, you get entrapped. There's so much that requires your time and attention, and we neglect ourselves. So I am telling you, ladies, don't lose you. If you like to do certain things, do it. And single lady, learn to date yourself. Take yourself to dinner. Take yourself to a movie if the theaters are open again. But do you. You have to find a space where you're comfortable with you. And let me tell you, that's what's sexy. That's what's appealing. That's what's attractive. When you know who you are and you don't compromise what you believe in and what you need to continue your success and make you happy.
No, well said. Well said. I just think that, for me, I think my message, my closing here is to my brothers out there. And my message is that you have to work on yourself, gentlemen. You have to work on healing yourselves, because if you bring in baggage and you bring in all this into a relationship, because I know growing up in the time frame that we grew up in, and growing up in the hood, my role models was pimp players and abusers. That's what I saw. That's what I learned. That's what I knew. I didn't have a father figure. What I had is some role models that were negative role models. And it's still no excuse, because I'm still responsible for my actions as an adult. But those things that creates are bad experiences that you often translate to and continue as an adult. And so those things, like I remember, and for a lack of appropriate language, like the song "Bitches Ain't Shit But Hoes and Tricks," and I could go on, but
I knew that song.
But that was ingrained into what you believe. You putting that in your earphones, and that's what you hear. So it was about quantity over quality, and it was about how could you have another notch on your belt? How could you do more? And how could you have this ego that was greedy? So those are the things that you learn, where I understand that. But then you also have to make choices, and you have to make the choice to heal, because taking those things into a relationship and then making a commitment to somebody and then deciding to do it differently is not good. So I'm not condoning anything that has happened. So I apologize to my ex for those actions. And I also apologize to all the women out there that have had to go through these things because brothers have not done the work on themselves to heal, because it's not okay. There shouldn't be a double standard where men can do it and women can't. So, you know, in the days and times where it's cool for a man to be promiscuous, but it's bad for a woman to be promiscuous, that's not okay. So and what I can say is that we all should develop some level of morals and values and work towards improving and healing. And it has taken me almost 43 years to get to that point. And those 43 years have shown me now that, yes, it's okay to go to therapy. Yes, it's okay to work through and not just grow, but to also heal. And then as you move on, you take this healed person into a relationship where you can love yourself and love that person. So I'm encouraged my brothers to work on the healing and not to be stealing. So not just trying to steal the booty, but try to heal yourself and do what you got to do to be a better person. Now, next week we have a good show coming. We're going to talk about some deep topics. We're going to talk about sex trafficking and sexual abuse, and we have actually a guest on who has a book out, and so she's an author. And I believe she definitely is going to tell us her story on some really crucial things that happened to her that made her who she is today. And so she's going to share that information. So tune in next Wednesday at 6:30. You know, we definitely want everybody to watch us. You know, YouTube, Facebook, check us out. You know, we really appreciate our audience. We appreciate the questions. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So we will see you next time, Wednesday, 7:30, people. Thanks for watching.
All right. Peace.